I used to believe nightmares were private things, stitched together by the brain from old fears and newer regrets, meant to fade with daylight. That belief ended the morning I woke with ink on my palm. It wasn't a tattoo. It wasn't a bruise. It was writing, neat and deliberate, as though someone had rested my hand on a desk while I slept and copied a sentence there. The words read, "Tonight, the water will rise again." I stared at my skin until the letters blurred, my heart tapping hard against my ribs. I lived alone in a one-room apartment above a bakery that smelled of yeast and sugar at dawn, and I'd spent the night dreaming of floods, of standing in a hallway while water licked my ankles and climbed. I washed my hands until the sink filled with suds. The ink stayed. That night, I dreamed of my childhood house, the one my parents sold after my father died. The walls were exactly as I remembered, except the hallway was longer, and at the end of it, a door breathed like a lung. When I woke, the words had changed. "The door will open if you knock." I stopped sleeping. It turns out that sleep is not a thing you can quit. It sneaks up on you like a hand on the shoulder. I dozed on buses and at my desk at work, where I answered emails for a company that sold ergonomic chairs. Each time I slipped under, something new waited for me. The dreams weren't random. They were composed. Scenes returned, developed, revised. A stairwell that smelled of rust. A boy standing at the edge of a field, his face hidden by shadow. A woman with a notebook, her pen scratching even when her hand was still. The writing began to appear elsewhere. A line on my wrist. A paragraph along my forearm. Once, a single word printed itself at the base of my throat like a warning label. "Listen." I went to a doctor. He asked about stress and caffeine and suggested melatonin. I showed him my arm. He leaned in, squinted, and said, "Marker?" I told him to try wiping it off. He smiled the way people do when they think they are humoring you. I left with a pamphlet and a prescription I didn't fill. The dreams grew louder. Sounds carried weight in them, pressed against my ears even after I woke. Dripping. Footsteps. The drag of a chair. The words on my skin started to predict things I didn't want to know. The bakery downstairs burned a batch of bread the same morning my palm said smoke is not always fire. A coworker quit without notice the day my wrist warned, someone will leave without saying goodbye. I began to suspect that the nightmares weren't mine at all. That someone else was using me as paper. The first kindness came from Mrs. Alvarez downstairs, who noticed my hollow eyes when I came to pay rent. She pressed a paper bag into my hands, still warm. "You look like you forgot to eat," she said. Inside were rolls glazed with honey. The sweetness anchored me for a moment. That night, I dreamed of a table laid with bread. No water rose. No doors breathed. When I woke, my skin was blank for the first time in weeks. I clung to that small mercy. I sought kindness like a remedy. I let a stranger go ahead of me in line and accepted his smile. I carried groceries for an old man whose hands shook. I called my mother, whom I'd avoided since the funeral, and listened more than I spoke. The dreams softened. The writing returned, but it changed. Not warnings. Instructions. Leave the lamp on. Call her back. Take the long way home. One evening, after a particularly gentle dream of sitting on a bus watching rain bead on the windows, I found an address written along my ribs. It itched, the way a thought does when it won't let you rest. The building was 3 blocks away, a brick library I'd passed 100 times without entering. The lights were on, though it was past closing. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of dust and lemon cleaner. At a long table sat the woman from my dreams, the one with the notebook. She looked up as if she'd been expecting me. Her hair was gray and braided. Her eyes were kind in a way that didn't hurry you. "I wondered when you'd come," she said. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened around all the questions I'd rehearsed. She gestured to the chair across from her. On the table lay a stack of notebooks, each labeled with a date. I saw my name on several spines. "You're writing my nightmares," I managed. She nodded. "And your kindness," she said. "I write what you are given." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to demand explanations that would stitch the world back together. Instead, I asked the only question that seemed to matter. "Why me?" She closed the notebook she'd been working in. "Because you listen," she said. "And because you needed to learn that fear can be answered." She told me a story then, about the way fear travels, how it leaks between people and places like water through old pipes. About how some of us are porous, and how that is not a flaw. "Nightmares are messages," she said. "They tell us where the pain is. But messages need couriers." "What about the writing on my skin?" I asked. "Paper runs out," she said. "People don't." I looked down at my hands, at the faint impressions where ink had been. "Make it stop," I said. It came out as a plea. She considered me for a long moment. "It can," she said. "But not the way you think. You can refuse to carry only fear. Or you can carry something heavier." "What's heavier than fear?" "Care," she said. She slid a notebook toward me. Inside were scenes I recognized and scenes I didn't. A boy standing in a field. A stairwell. A woman crying in a bakery at dawn. "These are not yours," she said. "They belong to people who don't know how to speak them yet. When you meet them, you'll feel it. You already have." Mrs. Alvarez's rolls. The old man's groceries. My mother's voice softening when I didn't rush her. I felt a warmth in my chest that hurt. "You don't have to come back," the woman said. "But if you do, bring what you've learned." I left the library with the notebook under my arm. That night, I slept deeply. I dreamed of walking through the city, and every door I passed was unlocked. Not because it had been left careless, but because someone on the other side had decided to trust. The writing returned in the morning, a single line along my forearm. "Give what you have." I began to notice things. The way my coworkers' laugh had gone thin. The way the barista flinched when a cup shattered. The way a neighbor's light stayed off even on cold nights. When I helped, the nightmares thinned. When I ignored what I saw, they crowded in. Once, I found the boy from the field sitting on the steps of the library, knees hugged to his chest. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I sat beside him and waited. When he finally spoke, it was about a flood that had taken his house, about how water could be both life and thief. I listened until my legs went numb. That night, I dreamed of water receding, leaving shells and a glimmer of glass. When I woke, my skin was clear. The woman with the notebook aged. Or maybe time simply caught up with her. One evening, she pressed the pen into my hand. "You know what to do," she said. "Write what is given. Leave room for light." I didn't want to take her place. I wanted to be done. She smiled, reading my thoughts like a familiar book. "You already are," she said. "Done with being only afraid." She died quietly a month later. The library closed for renovations. I kept the notebook safe. Sometimes, when I'm tired, the dreams try to return to their old shapes. Hallways stretch. Doors breathe. But then I remember Mrs. Alvarez's honeyed rolls, the weight of groceries in my hands, the way listening can change the weather inside a room. I write those things down. I pass them on. There are still words on my skin some mornings. They are gentler now. Sit with her. Forgive yourself. Turn on the light. And when I wake, the nightmares have been written over, not erased, but answered, their sharp edges softened by the steady work of care. I no longer believe nightmares are private. I believe they are invitations. And I have learned how to respond.